All right, Mike McCormick's in the house, the money guru of investing and all of that. So we're going to be chatting with Mikey. Everybody wants to be like Mike right after the news. Welcome back, everyone. 6 minutes after the hour. It is Mike McCormick Day. It's Thursday. Shane Matabin, half man, half amazing, on the line with me. And Mike McCormick, totally amazing, is in the house.
Boy.
Welcome, Michael.
Hey, it is. What an introduction. I feel like I should pull a George Costanza and just walk out of the room on a high note right now, because I can only disappoint from here.
And he does eat his Snickers with a knife and fork.
And sleep under my desk.
That's right.
There's much we can learn from George Costanza, really.
There is. I tell you, he was a sage before his time.
Indeed.
Well, the markets are
going straight up.
They've been everywhere.
Straight up is where
they've
they're
been
going.
up. Well, I thought they'd go up after the Davos speech that Trump made, but they didn't. And then they tanked on that day, and then the next day they're up, and now they're down again. So
we're all just coming up with reasons to keep buying, is what it is, and that's the nature of a bull market, is that you're coming up with reasons to justify your behavior. Lots of cash. The cash on the sideline argument, it's still there. But there's lots of cash that's been added to people's accounts because of the retirement contribution funding. I do think that there is a bit of an effect from that happens. People up until the end of the year can make contributions to things like 401ks through payroll and simple IRAs. There's even an opportunity to do some of that after the year. And then in the show, Tom and I, we want to go over a few tax tips, because there's things that you can still do now that will impact your taxes for last year too. But there's clearly just a demand to buy shares in companies that continues right now, and we're bullish on America. We have redesigned some of our investment models at my company, and that's based upon what other models that I see. I'm not silly enough to think that I've got the keys to the castle, right? All the information is at everybody's fingertips. You can log in. You can see what BlackRock recommends you do. You can see what Vanguard recommends you do. That one's pretty easy. You can look and see what American funds suggest you do. You can see what hedge funds, it takes a little while to see the data, but you can see what they think that you should do. And so you can amalgamate all these sorts of things. Look at, see who's forecasting. Charles Schwab obviously puts out a pretty good forecast. I like JP Morgan's as well. And you sort of stir all that around in your pot and think on it. And then you say, okay, I think that this is the right model changes that we should make for our clients that should be in automatic investment models, which is, I would say most retirement accounts fit this bill. You're not actively taking money out. You're not actively adding money in until you're in retirement, or there's no big changes happening to it. It's not there for big life changes. It's there for long-term growth. And so these models that we're putting together are pretty consistent with the playbook of USA, equities before bonds. And then, yes, there's areas that we need to be careful about overexposure to, but you still need to be heavy in tech. So nothing new that you haven't been hearing from me. I'd say the one surprising thing that I'm seeing across the board from the clever people that think emerging markets are the time right now, that whether it's China, India, Russia, Brazil, whether it's even the secondary emerging markets that would be Africa, parts of Malaysia, Indonesia, East Africa, etc. These markets still have so much upside to go, but it takes a lot of things going right for them to really pop.
Yeah. One of the things, of course, we've got this virus over in China going on now that has killed a lot of people over there. I think we got one case in the United States. We'll see how that
Washington State.
Yeah, how that plays out. But are people going to look at China and say, boy, I wonder if that $2 China doll is infected, or you don't know how the transportation of these things work sometimes. And is there a fear that, maybe I better go to Vietnam or I'll go to Malaysia to get my $2 doll? Or
there's certainly some sectors that are taking it on the chin. Every time that there's an issue like this, or a natural disaster, whichever, certain segments, airlines, travel companies, cruise companies, they take it on the chin. But we have short memories with this stuff. We really do.
We've had a lot of scares of viruses that have gone nowhere.
Thankfully, because Michael Crichton scared the bejesus out of me 20 years ago when he started coming out with his books.
I know they used to do these things, and
And maybe,
are we getting jaded? Is this crying wolf too often, or
I'm not
I
the
realize you
expert.
got to be safe and warn people, but still.
You know what I think is interesting, Tom, is this parlays pretty well with the nationalistic sentiment that we've been on trend for. That is, the Trump economics. It is, we are not a global trading entity. We are our own nation, and we are skeptical of doing business with other people unless it's on terms that we dictate. And this is only going to further that. So I don't think that this is going to. I think that there'll be some hiccups. If this, God forbid, gets to be a bigger deal, of course, the downside is huge, right? It's one of those huge risks that you can't ignore. But if it plays out how it normally does, in 2 months we'll be like, oh, was that Ebola? What was that thing that happened in Hong Kong?
Yeah. Well, let's hope that's the way it turns out.
Right.
Let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Call you on the air with Mike McCormick. What's going on?
Good morning, gentlemen. This is Steve.
Or Steve.
Mike, thanks for taking my call. So I was curious, as far as investing is concerned, what do we consider when it comes to demographics? I just read a report this morning. China just came out with some new demographics, and their birth rate's at 0.9. So they're going to see a decrease in population by 2030. They're starting to calculate.
Mm-hmm.
So what would that say for growth in China, and then how would I use that to make investment decisions?
Great question. If you've listened to me, I'm always saying the long ball on the U.S. is challenged by our lack of population growth. If we don't have more people working, more people passing dollars to each other, it's hard to get economic growth without having increases in productivity, which robots could do for us. So that would apply to any other country as well. And I always point to Europe. I mean, look at Europe's pathetic growth rates. Their birth rates have been low for a long time. 30-hour work weeks, long holidays means not a lot of money's been made, and there's not necessarily a ton of money to be made. So that's an interesting point that you bring up. I think it's a really long game to be playing that, and the number of mouths in China that are still in poverty, waiting to work hard and achieve, is still a number that you can't overrule.
I think they allow 2 children now, where they were only allowing 1.
They did pull out the one-child rule. But you can also say, well, in any emerging market fund, they're also including Latin America in there, which is Catholic, giddy up and go, population rates through the moon.
Yeah.
So there's opportunity to play both sides. India is another place where there's, I believe, either they're bursting at their population as it is. I don't know what their growth rate is, but great question.
Yeah.
Boy, it's a really long investment thesis to be playing that in our short-term minds.
Shane, what do you think on that topic?
Well, we've talked a lot about global demographics with regard to population, and over 50% of the people in China now are over 60 years old. So not only are they coming into a dilemma of collapse of their population, but also the care of the people retiring. So it becomes one of those things that I watch and you and I talk about, that China is on the verge of a major bust, boom bust in capitalist.
Is that right? 50% of their population is over 60?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, when you're talking about almost 1 billion people. Well, the other thing, too, is...
And just one other comment.
Sure.
Japan's gone in 75 years.
Yeah.
Their birth rate is down below 1% because 50% of their males are infertile. They can't produce. And so, this is a problem. The Muslims will take over Europe by 2050 without firing a shot because of population demographics and a birth rate of 8-1. So you and I have talked about this extensively for years, Tom. It's something people don't even discuss, and it affects everything, including what we're talking about, which is money.
Well, the other thing we need to throw into this equation, give me a minute, Steve. The other thing we've got to throw into this equation is that we've got this Chinese virus going on now, and also we've also got the phase 1 of the deal signed. So, but China's still being charged the tariffs until they demonstrate that they're going to adhere to the agreement. And,
well, that's right, and it's also got a sunshine clause in it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And the reason your president's done that is because he expects they will have a bust because it's a capitalist society.
Yeah.
The other thing we want to mention too, which is really important with demographics, baby boomers. in another 2030, we've hit the apex.
Mm-hmm.
So, got to 15, 16,000 of them retiring a day daily. Now it's down to 11,000. But this is another aspect that affects the market too, as far as demographics.
Yeah. All right, Steve, any final thoughts?
Well, just quick. I'm a younger guy. I plan on retiring in about 30 years. And when I see these demographic numbers, it concerns me about investing in the 401s. I can imagine that over a 10, 20-year period, we're going to see some major declines in our retirement capital because of demographic decline. So just wondering how Mike would advise investing for a long term, 20, 30 years out.
Every time we come up with...
I'll take the answer off air. Thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Sure. Thanks for the call, Steve. Yeah.
I mean, it's so far out. It's so hard to decide. I mean, China, as a communist country, could just say, hey, actually, everybody needs to have 4 babies now. They could change it like that. Sure. New York Times is showing me a population article that's not quite as drastic as what we're talking about. Things change. In the U.S., we had a huge benefit to having children under 17. If you're filing taxes this springtime and you have kids under 17, you're going to really appreciate that. If they turn 17, then they fall off the dole.
Well, the other thing to think about, 10 years ago, let's take 15 years ago, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have Netflix, we didn't have all the streaming stuff, we didn't have the cell phones we have now and all that.
Kids are not engaging in risky behavior to get pregnant.
Yeah, right.
We're just on our iPads the whole time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're on iPads instead of.
That's a concern.
I wonder, they go out and park in the moonlight, and they're both on their phones.
And they're sending kissing emojis. They're sending risky emojis to each other.
I don't know.
I think that you just got to be cautious of any of these. There's a lot of reasons to be concerned about the future. When I was young, my parents were my age. They had a lot of reasons to be concerned about the future. I was sitting having dinner with a young lady, very liberal, that has stated that she and her husband are not going to have children because in 40 years they believe that the world that we live in would be so poor off that they wouldn't want to bring a human into that. And that's a sad thing for me.
That is sad.
I'm a glass half full kind of person, and I like to think that the future is going to be good. And if you look in the back rearview mirror, it has gotten better. I don't know if anybody that would have say that's I didn't want to be born in the Middle Ages, even unless I was a noble, I suppose. I didn't want to be born anytime other than now. It just keeps getting better and better. So
I was going to say, we're. If you think it's bad now, wait 10 years.
And what we're seeing in the market now is one of the theses why the market's going up so much, is that there's so few people participating in it. Is that there's just people can't get in. It's a closed system. We just keep bolstering it up. There's not enough supply of stocks out there, so the market's just floating up as people that are able to invest continue to benefit from it, and other people can't get it. Look at the housing market.
Oh yeah.
Case in point. Housing keeps going up. There's not enough supply. Not enough people can get in. The people that have it continue to make money. It's a bit of an opposite supply and demand argument, but careful when you're putting together these really long theses. Tomorrow looks pretty good, so you should be investing between now and in the next 10 years.
Well, they say the entire knowledge of the human race doubles every 11 months or so, or something like that, every 13 or whatever. And
I'm on a much slower trajectory than that, let me tell you that.
I know. But kids that are freshmen in college now will be solving problems that don't exist in 4 years.
My girls are taking finals today. Good luck, girls, as are many other listeners' kids. And what they're using to study, there's an app called Quizlet, and they can build their own quizzes on the fly, and they can type in something like wavelength or Earth's crust or quantum mechanics or covalent bonds or whatever the science thing is. And Quizlet will come up with graphic little snippets that you can choose from and build your own quiz. Within 30 seconds, you can build a 10-question quiz that's directly relatable to the subject you're on, customizable to your independent learning ability. These kids are smarter than we were when we were half their age.
Oh, yeah.
They're graduating high school smarter than most college graduates of my age. The future looks pretty good, if you ask me, in regards to that.
Yeah, we had to use Fisher-Price toys, Shane and I, so that's how we learned.
Right.
So, we got to take a break.
Fisher-Price abacus.
That's right, yeah. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. Mike McCormick's in the house. Shane Matavin, half man, half amazing on the line, and Tom Eagle, your morning mayor. We'll continue the conversation right after this. It is 24 minutes after the hour. Boy, Mike McCormick's in the house. Shane Matavin, half man, half amazing in Vancouver, British Columbia, keeping us honest. And Tom Eagle, your morning mayor. And let's see, from our text line, let's see. For the love of God, China is not paying tariffs. We Americans are. No one's disputing that. Let's see. Yeah, I think we've established that pretty well. And as far as we can tell, according to inflation, they're not being passed on to anybody. There you are.
Whew.
Yeah.
Hard holding my breath that long.
Yeah, they're not being passed on to the American public, at least, or otherwise inflation would be more than 2. What is it? I'll look it up right now.
Sure, and I'm not the expert in this, but if we're doing subsidies to the people we're putting tariffs on, it's sort of a circular sort of thing.
Inflation grade 2.29. So
I'm sure there's plenty of people in the ag business listening that could educate us more about who's actually paying.
Sure, yeah. All right, let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number. Caller, you are on the air. What's your name? What's going on?
Yeah, I think Mike kind of alluded to it earlier. In a certain aspect, we can only do each other's laundry. See, this big idea that started out back in the 70s was like, let's just say Mattel, for instance. We're going to let the Chinese build the toys, make it cheaper. We're going to call it import-export business, and that way I can sit on my butt and have more recreation and family time and have the car and the boat and everything in the driveway. Well, that fails after a certain amount of time, because when we do each other's laundry, we are not producing and being productive in our own aspect. All we're doing is shifting numbers. And Trump came in, and he's at least attempting to fix that, or help certain areas fix that, so that we can learn to build our own cars. Now, who's going to build that house or that project downtown? Who's going to do the brick and mortar, so that the kids that are really computer savvy, because we didn't have those back in my days, can sit up in the offices and do less work but we'll provide that building. You see, I guess my point is the youth of today is not being taught the work ethic that we were taught back in our younger days. And so we're going to end up doing each other's laundry in some other aspect eventually. I know you're going to people say, well, let the robots do it. Well, you know what? A robot can't do everything in life. There's human ingenuity, and somebody's got to build that robot. And somebody's got to do that labor out there. And somebody has to fix the problems when your computerized car breaks down on the side of the road and you're in the middle of Wilsall. Somebody's got to come out and help you. And so we can't lose aspect of teaching the youth of today the work ethic that some of us were taught back in our years. Am I making any sense?
Amen to that. I agree with the work ethic parts for sure.
Okay, so
and I think a lot of employers listening to us would say, "Hey, it's really hard to find people who want to work." It really
exactly.
is. Yeah.
Exactly.
How much time off do I get to ski? How much time off do I get to, smoke with my friends? How much time do I get to?
You mean vape?
To do what?
Vape with the vape with the kids.
You're gonna smoke pot with your friends?
Yeah.
Tell that to Zach Brown to quit smoking his pot.
That's right. All right.
Okay. So, anyways, but yeah, especially in Bozeman. They all want the ski time out here.
Yeah.
They want to be lazy. They all want to manage the property, but they don't want to do the work themselves. They just want to sit there and manage the money of the properties and charge people more money. And the people like that, frustrating to the nth degree, because they call that management. Well, if you're in management, you should actually know how to go out and fix that property, no matter what it is in that house. You should be able to put in some of that service work to the person that's paying you to manage their property. Not just sit on your butt while some out-of-state owner, You're just a middle money manager.
Correct.
And that's what the import-export business did to this country, and that's what Trump's trying to get rid of and bring it a little bit back, and at least in my opinion.
All right, I got to go.
So,
Hey,
all
thanks
right,
for the call.
bye-bye.
All right, take it easy. All right, Mike McCormick, McCormick Financial Advisors in the house. Shane Matobin, half man, half amazing on the line. Tom Eagle, your morning mayor's here. And we'll be back with Mike following these important words. Plus, I got to play his disclaimer, too.
You do. And just great comment. Kids from Eastern Montana, farm kids from Eastern Montana are at the top of the demand chain for their work ethic and skills.
All right. We'll be right back with more with Mike and Shane and me right after this.
Welcome to Preserving Your Wealth with Mike McCormick, where we talk about smart ways to invest and preserve your money. Mike is a registered investment advisor with McCormick Financial Advisors in Bozeman, Montana. As an independent fiduciary, Mike does not receive commissions from any of the products or investments mentioned on this program. Consult a professional before making any investment decision. You can find old shows archived at McCormickFinancialadvisors.com. Learn, participate, interact.
And Mike McCormick is in the house with us. Thanks for being here, Mike. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thanks for playing the disclaimer. Sorry, we got to do that.
Yeah,
but,
it's illegal. It's a legal deal.
It's just not my fault, is what it says.
Yeah, Shane will turn you in if you don't play that. So.
Takes a village. We got to keep everybody in line.
Jerry's on the phone.
Jerry's on the phone. Let's go to the phones then. 522 Talk is the number. Caller, you are on the air.
Well, I was just asking Shane about the carbon tax that's been initiated in Canada over the years, and I was astounded by the proportion of the tax to the amount of the bill. A friend of mine in British Columbia got a $2 gas bill for home heating or utility, and the carbon tax was 6 times that amount. It was $12, and I'm just thinking, boy, that's a rip. I think that's absolutely horrible. But I do have a question for Mike. Mr. McCormick, do you know anything about what is called, I believe it's currency trading, and I believe the term is Forex currency trading. Do you know anything about that?
I know that Shane knows more than I do. That's what I know.
On currency, yeah, he's our go-to guy.
He's our go-to guy. My view is that steps into the world of options margin, things that are difficult to control and predict, and not in my realm of long-term investing. But Shane, what's your question? Shane can swing hard at this one.
Well, I was just wondering if this is something viable, or if it's a reasonable investment, this particular thing. And it seems to be based on the dollar versus the British pound, which seems to be a more volatile area simply because of Brexit.
Yeah, and I'll lead in for Shane, but every country's got their own currency. The value of what you trade a dollar for a yen or a yuan or a loonie or anything is going to basically be based upon people's future views of how the countries are going to do, and those relationships change regularly. And so it is a big liquid market that is available to the average person through any online login. So go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, I can. I real quick, Shane. I can add that 5.1 trillion in daily trading
Correct.
volume.
It's Forex trading. You can look it up, Forex. And the currency market has taken over the equity market. It's now the largest market in the world. Used to be sovereign debt. And then, of course, the equity market, stocks, and then commodities. Commodities used to top all of them 20 years ago when China was rebuilding itself. But, yeah, now the currency market is the biggest, and right now it's hot because of the situation in Brexit, and because the British will be leaving the euro at the end of the month. And a lot of traders were looking at this as a huge opportunity because the word on the Forex trading world that you read about, that I read about, they expect that the euro will break up again. So that's another 28 currencies for them to trade. Ooh.
Okay, I'm not so sure I'm going to get involved in anything like this, but I just wanted to clarify that for my own information. Thanks for taking my call, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the reason it's important to recognize it is that the leverage of a single percentage change in any currency is so significant with the amount of funds that are traded in it now. It's a huge, it's a leveraged profit. So that's why they trade it.
Yeah.
And unlike, I'd like to add too, unlike a stock, there's a limited upside. If you were to just buy, let's say the Australian dollar right now, I imagine is fairly weak with the fires and low commodity prices and no outlook for oil. Say, okay, well, we're going to buy low and we're just going to hang on to it and it's going to go up. You're tied to just how that economy, the GDP of it grows, and related to this inflation rate and so on. Whereas if you owned a share of PepsiCo, you have the opportunity to grow with an unlimited upside theoretically.
Yeah. So, well, it's I think Shay would agree. It's a lot like gold or any other metal. It's only worth what somebody's going to pay for it, and the same with the currencies of a country. You know, the either people think the currency of a country is stable and good, or it's not. If you're gonna if you're gonna buy whatever the currency is in Greece, I don't know, or Argentina or someplace like that.
No, it's the euro in Greece, I believe.
Well, yeah.
Just a note here for the average investor thinking about how things work. Well, if you own a share of Total, a French-owned oil company, you're owning it in dollars.
Yeah.
It's through an ADR. And so its profits and all the benefits of the company are being converted to dollars, and then how that impacts your account. You can actually invest in currency hedged versions of it, which would strip out the relationship between dollars and euros and take that risk out of it. I don't normally recommend getting that level of complexity, but just thinking about, okay, well, if I'm owning a share of Tencent, the Chinese bank, how exposed am I to the dollar yuan relationship? Well, you are. You could have own a company that's making tons of money, but because of the currency relationship, realize less of a profit, and vice versa.
Right. Exactly right. All right, we're going to take another short break. We'll be right back with Mike McCormick and more info right after this. Stay tuned. 14 minutes for the top of the hour, 45 minutes after the hour if you're, left-handed, I guess. Thursday, January 23rd, 2020, 33 degrees outside. Shane Matobin, half man, half amazing on the line. Mike McCormick, McCormick Financial Services in the house. And glad to have you, Mike.
I am left-handed.
You are?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
The whole thing.
Oh,
everybody's born right-handed. Only the greatest can overcome that, right?
Ooh, jeez.
All right. Well, judge me if you will.
Yeah.
Okay, I did want to get this out.
Get it out.
If you had a good year last year, and I hope you did, hope you made a ton of money, and you should be expecting a ton of taxes to go along with that. There's still things that you can do. They're not complicated. They're not secret. The complicated secret things I generally don't want you to do. In every situation, this goes through your CPA. Your accountant is your greatest advisor. Most people are small business owners. You should have a CPA. If you're an employee, it's okay to use TurboTax. But even then, there's times in your life where you get an inheritance or you bought a property or whatever, you moved houses.
Sure.
It's just a great insurance policy to go see an accountant. Accountants right now, they are available. They are well rested. Some may be looking for new business. If you're not sure who to go with, feel free to give me a call. Feel free to ask friends who they use. Most everybody in town does a great job. We live in a great town for that. But the SEP IRA is a great tool for the small business owner that would allow them to put away potentially $55,000 and cut that all off of their tax bill. Not a tax credit, but this would be off of their earnings. They could cut their earnings back by $55,000 by putting all that money into a retirement pocket for themselves. There's a lot of different flavors and alphabet soups of retirement plans. But know that the most important thing you can do is keep the money yourself. Doing things like buying equipment, buying vehicles, things like that can help your business. You need them. But nobody has ever made money by buying a depreciating asset.
Amen to that.
You got it.
Well, I've often wondered why do people want gold, my appreciating asset, against my depreciating dollar so badly.
Well,
I don't know how that works.
You got to wonder.
I do. Well,
gold is up 400% in the last 20 years.
It is, yeah.
Let's be honest about it.
Right. No, it's not a depreciating asset, but it is a curious asset.
No, it isn't. I don't. I meant to say that I mean, the gold is an appreciating asset where dollar is depreciating asset. So sort of. Well, I guess it depends on the strength of the dollar.
You're in deep water now, Tom.
I'm, geez.
Move on. Nothing to see here.
Got to go somewhere else on that one, don't I?
Right. Move on.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there we are. Yeah.
We'll clear all that up tomorrow.
Are your investors, are they concerned about what's happening in Washington with are they a little iffy, a little nervous about the election in 2020? What will happen if Trump's not reelected? Are
Of course.
taxes going
Of course.
going
How
up?
can you not be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had a ton of change. We've had a ton of gains.
Mhm.
People
like that.
People like the gains.
Yeah.
They like the change when it comes with gains.
Yeah.
But if we continue change, eventually the gains might go away. So of course, everybody's concerned. And I tell people, look, there are going to be moments in this coming year where there is fear out there because whatever it is that you think is important is going to be threatened.
Yeah.
And that will be, that's how it's always been. We have the most resilient market that we've ever seen right now. We can get news about very scary illness breakouts. I mean, they quarantined Hong Kong.
Yeah.
That's never been done, I don't think, ever. Imagine if New York City said,
Sorry.
like,
nobody in, nobody out.
they made a movie about that with Snake Plissken about in the late 80s, Escape from New York.
I know, right. Kurt Russell, I believe, was the
Yeah,
head
well,
guy in
right. They should come out with a part 2 since Hollywood's
they
looking
should.
for new ideas. They should go with that one. So, there's real scary things happening out there. But what we're seeing is that people are resilient. We still go show up to work, and we're having monumental changes. Tesla's stock is case in point, is that there are changes happening in our economy. We're monitored everywhere. People can market to us directly based upon things that were said in the show. I'll probably see some things in my inbox or Facebook feed or something like that. And that allows people to make money off me. We see things that are happening in technology where we want things, we want to upgrade things. That allows people to make money. Transportation is getting easier. That allows people to make more money. Education, we already talked about that. There's a lot of really exciting good things. We didn't even touch on healthcare and the advances that are happening in that. That's one of the hot picks for the stock pickers this year is in the healthcare segment, mainly because they haven't done very well in the past 5 years and everything else has, and yet they're still getting all of our dollars for things that we have to have.
And Shane's got those 11,000 baby boomers getting out of the market every day and retiring, and they're
going to spend all their money on staying
all
alive.
like me. They can barely move,
Wonder Drugs.
Well, it's like the Dow is down today at 175 points.
Yep.
I attribute it to two things: Brexit in Europe and the Japanese trade is off on the U.S. So the market in Asia overnight was really bloody. So they're selling, and you'll see this more as the 31st of January comes along. So, unfortunately now your market is being pressed by outside, matters, not internal ones, which is, that's the problem that you have when you have a global market, and we have to be cautious over the next 2 weeks with it.
We got to take another quick break. We'll be back with Mike McCormick and Shane Mataba and myself right after this. 4 minutes before the top of the hour. Thanks to Mike McCormick for being here. Shane Mataba, Half Man, Half Amazing, on the line with us, adding to the conversation with his currency expertise.
You got it. It's a full bullpen that you got here.
We got everybody here.
Well, the thing is right now that after Davos, the world's facing an economic crisis, and from Europe to China, including Japan, all their economic measures to boost growth in their countries are failing. And your country is just you're perfectly set. I mean, it's a perfect moment on a global basis of economics where your country is. Full measure, Prime Minister Johnson sat down with Trump. They may not have talked about it on the news, but I guarantee you, he's going to do a trade deal with England, backdoor to the Commonwealth nations. It puts pressure on Europe now to do individual treaties with the United States. And on top of that, the only place they're going to make money is coming to the United States, because the only place in the world that has people capable of consuming still on a large scale basis are Americans.
Yeah, that's going to do it. All right. Any final thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I think we can even take that a bit locally and say, I've been here for 20 years and I can get crusty looking at all the people and the stuff and the growth and the expensive lunches. But you know what? How nice that we're in a growing community and people are moving here all for the right reasons. They're all nice people, hard workers. So it's not just the US of A that's looking good. It's Bozeman, Montana. So everybody enjoy the opportunities that it brings and the nice people that you encounter. Yeah. And thanks for participating in the show. It's a great place to be.
All right.